I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. On Thursday, the Senate Budget Committee held a hearing on how to save Social Security. During his opening statement, Senator Bernie Sanders touted the government program. Sanders said, quote, "We live in a moment of great insecurity, and yet Social Security since its inception has never failed the American people." Sanders also assured that, quote, "Social Security today is not on the line of going broke." Listen to the Vermont lawmaker's full explanation.
On a subject that is of enormous interest to, I think, almost every American, that is the future of Social Security in our country. And let me thank all of our panelists for being with us. And let me thank the senators who I know are going to be filtering in as the hearing progresses. My understanding is that Ranking Member Lindsey Graham has a scheduling conflict and will be making his opening statement after our witnesses testify. Is that right? Yep. Okay. Social Security is, I think, as everybody knows, one of the most popular and successful government programs in the history of our nation. For more than 80 years, in good times and bad, Social Security has paid out every benefit owed to every eligible American on time and without delay. And I think it's important to make that point. We live in a moment of great insecurity, and yet Social Security, since its inception, has never failed the American people and remains a program enormously important to them and one that they can rely upon. Not once over more than 8 decades of operation, not during the pandemic that we're in, not during the Wall Street crash, has anyone ever received a letter or a phone call from the Social Security Administration saying, "Sorry, the economy is not doing well, we need to cut your benefits." Never happened. And if I have anything to say about it, it never will happen. Today, while many people take Social Security for granted, it's been around for a long time, let us remember, before Social Security was created in 1935, about half of our nation's seniors were living in poverty. Today, though the poverty rate is still too high for seniors, that rate is just 8.9%. 50% before Social Security, less than 9% today. Got to do better, but that is a significant improvement. Without Social Security, it is estimated that some 22 million Americans, including more than 16 million seniors, would be living in poverty. Yet, despite this important success, we should be clear that tens of millions of senior citizens are still struggling today to make ends meet, and many older workers are scared to death, literally frightened to death, that they will never be able to retire with any shred of dignity. According to the most recent data that I have seen, 12% of seniors in America are trying to live on an income of less than $10,000 a year. Got that? 12% less than $10,000 a year. I don't know how anyone can live, seniors or otherwise, on less than $10,000. And equally important, 55% of seniors are trying to survive on less than $25,000 a year. Think about that. And when you're a senior, you're dependent on prescription drugs and health care, trying to keep your home warm, trying to make it. On 25,000 years, that's more than half of the seniors in America. Adding insult to injury, and this is an enormously important point that I think we don't make often enough, about half of older Americans, those who are 55 years of age and older, have no retirement savings. Got that? You're 55 years of age in America, you've worked your whole life, you got zero in the bank for when you retire. And they are dependent on a Social Security benefit today that is less than $1,540 a month on average. Now, despite what some politicians have been saying for years, Social Security today is not on the line going broke. Social Security has a $2.85 trillion surplus in its trust fund and can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 13 years, okay? Social Security, you pay out all your benefits for the next 13 years. But what the actuaries want, what I want, what I think most people want is more than 13 years. The actuaries talk about 75 years being the kind of number that we should have as we go forward. After that 13 years, Social Security estimates that there will be enough funding, Social Security Administration estimates that there will be enough funding available to pay 80% of promised benefits. So you got all benefits for the next 13 years, 80% after that. Now, given that reality, our job, in my view, is not to cut Social Security, is not to raise the retirement age, as many of my Republican colleagues would have us do. Our job is to expand Social Security so that everyone in America can retire with the dignity that he or she deserves, and that every person in this country with a disability can retire with the security they need. And that is what the Social Security Expansion Act that I have introduced today, along with Senators Warren, Whitehouse, Merkley, Van Hollen, Padilla, Booker, and Gillibrand, is all about. This legislation has been endorsed by many, many organizations, including the AFL-CIO, the Alliance for Retired Americans, Social Security Works, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, the American Federation of Teachers, and many, many other organizations. According to a letter, this is an important part of what this hearing is about today, according to a letter that I received from the Social Security Administration this morning, this legislation will fully fund Social Security for the next 75 years and expand benefits for senior citizens and people with disabilities. Now, how do we do that? How do you expand benefits and make Social Security solvent for the next 75 years, which is, I think, what the American people want? Well, the answer is not complicated. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, at a time when billionaires pay an effective tax rate lower than the average working person, at a time when the very richest people in this country are becoming much richer, this legislation demands that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. Today, absurdly and grossly unfairly, there is a cap on income subject to Social Security taxes. That cap is now about $147,000 a year. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you are a multi-billionaire, you pay the same amount of money into Social Security as someone who makes $147,000 a year. Got that? It means that if you make $147,000 a year, you pay 6.2% of your income in Social Security taxes. But if you make 10 times more than that, $1,470,000, you pay 0.6% of your income in Social Security taxes. All of this is taking place at a time of massive income and wealth inequality. Now, that may make sense to somebody. It does not make sense to me. Our legislation applies the Social Security payroll tax on all income, including capital gains and dividends, for those who make over $250,000 a year. Under this legislation, 93.6% of households would not see their taxes go up by 1 penny. So the overwhelming majority of the American people would not see any increase in their taxes under this proposal. The tax increase in our legislation only applies to the wealthiest 6.4% of all Americans, those who make $250,000 a year or more. Further and importantly, under this bill, Social Security benefits would be increased by $2,400 a year for both new and existing recipients, lifting millions of seniors out of poverty. In addition, under this bill, we would increase COLAs for senior citizens by more accurately measuring the spending pattern for senior citizens through the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. Now, one of the reasons that I called this hearing, and I'm glad that Senator Graham has been able to be here, is that there is, in fact, a strong philosophical difference between many of us in the Democratic caucus and many in the Republican caucus as to the best way forward with regard to Social Security. And that's kind of the discussion we're going to have today. While virtually all members of the Democratic caucus are on record in support of expanding Social Security benefits, the Republicans, by and large, have taken a very different approach. And I'm delighted, and I hope they will show up, that some of the Republicans who have taken strong positions on this issue, I see Senator Romney's here, and I'm glad that is the case. Look forward to hearing from him. That some of the Republicans who have taken strong positions on this issue are on this committee. And I know that they're going to be explaining where they come from, and I look forward to that debate. Earlier this year, Senator Rick Scott, the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, released a plan that would sunset Social Security every 5 years, raise taxes on millions of seniors, and jeopardize the guaranteed income of 65 million Americans who depend on Social Security. Just a few months ago, the Republican Study Committee in the House introduced a bill that would raise the Social Security retirement age to 69 years of age over the next 8 years and privatize Social Security by allowing employers to divert payroll tax dollars into less generous private retirement accounts. Last year, Senator Romney, who is here with us, has opposed raising taxes on the wealthy to strengthen Social Security, introduced legislation to form a committee to propose cuts to Social Security behind closed doors. In 2020, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell told a Bloomberg reporter that, quote, he hopes to work with the next Democratic president to trim Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, end quote. In 2011, my colleague Senator Graham introduced legislation to raise the full retirement age to 70 by 2032 and index it to longevity. Further, in 2003, Senator Graham introduced a bill that would have cut Social Security benefits for current wage earners by 27%, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Now, as I think everybody knows, I don't often agree with former President Donald Trump. But this is what he said when he was campaigning for president in 2015, and he was right. He said, quote, every Republican, this is in the Republican primary, every Republican wants to do a big number on Social Security, they want to do it on Medicare, and they want to do it on Medicaid, end quote. Well, let me be clear, we cannot allow that to happen. The vast majority of the American people understand that a moral society does not give tax breaks to billionaires and then cut back on the needs of struggling seniors or people with disabilities. In fact, 72% of Americans support increasing, not cutting, Social Security benefits by asking millionaires and billionaires to pay more into the system. So that is where we are right now. It's a great philosophical difference. I look forward to the debate. Some of us think that the very wealthiest people in this country are doing extraordinarily well, should in fact be asked to pay more into Social Security so we can protect millions of low-income and struggling seniors. Others disagree. And with that, I'm glad that Senator Graham has been able to come. Senator Graham.